Okay,
Yeah.
Scott, I think people are anxiously awaiting talking about coronavirus. So let's get into it. It's in the news everywhere. There are countries that are shut down. Italy is on total quarantine, pretty much. There's states that have declared emergencies, including the state that you're in. And we're seeing, an increase of this in the news. So talk to us about what do you know and what should we be doing about it, etc.
Okay, so I was a microbiologist before I went to medical school. I got my degree in microbiology. We studied coronavirus, and that was way back 30 years ago in the 1980s. And so there's nothing new about the coronavirus. People think, oh, this is a new virus that just showed up, or it was created by some mad scientist in China. Or something like that. Well, coronavirus is unusual in a few different ways. And one is some viruses like smallpox, for example, they only infect humans. So that particular virus only attacks humans and no other animal. So when you get rid of smallpox, it's gone. There is no, there's none left in the world because it only affects humans. And if there are no humans affected, it's gone. So, but coronavirus is different. Coronavirus can infect other animals. And so, so at least theoretically, you could give coronavirus to your pets, and coronaviruses are known to infect animals. And can cross species. So I don't know, there was this one rumor that was going around that coronavirus came from people in China eating bat soup, that they would make soup out of bats. And that's where coronavirus came from. And that's ridiculous. That's not where it comes from. But yes, bats do harbor it. Mammals can carry the virus and can spread it to humans. So so it's not out of the question that a bat did harbor it and that somebody got, I don't know, bit by a bat in the same way, people get rabies from bats. You could also get a coronavirus from bats. And so, rabies is another one that can cross species where it can infect other mammals and also infect humans. So what is the coronavirus? Well, it's a cold. For heaven's sakes, everybody in the world had it.
Wow.
We've all had a coronavirus at some point in our lives, but there are different ones, and of the ones the 7 that are known, this one is new, and that's the only thing about this that is that is different. Is not that, oh, we've never had coronavirus before and all of a sudden it showed up. No, that's not it. It is this particular strain of coronavirus is new in the human population, that it has not been seen in humans before. And so it's different, and that's all. In fact, it's not even especially virulent. It's not a bad virus compared to something like Ebola virus, where you have 30 to 70% of people that get infected die. This you have less than, well, they say 3%, 2%, 1%, depending on what you're doing, but you have to be careful of those statistics. When they say that in China, 3% of people are dying from the virus, that's 3% of people who go to a hospital and are diagnosed with it. That's not 3% of everybody who gets it, because remember, the coronavirus is a cold virus. It's kind of like the flu. You get 100,000 people who get infected with the virus, and of those, 10,000 of them get really sick and may go to a hospital or urgent care or something, get tested. And out of that, 100 of them end up in the hospital super sick, and 98% of those people make it through and they're fine. 2% of them die.
Wow.
So the ones that die are the ones that are usually somehow immunocompromised, or it gets into their lungs and fills up their lungs with fluid so they can't breathe, because their immune system doesn't fight it off. So when you look at the big picture and you step back and say, wait a minute, the large majority of people who are getting this virus are never tested because they just have a mild cold. In fact, what's really interesting is just like every other coronavirus, a lot of people are spreading the virus and they don't even know they're sick. There was somebody that went to Germany. This was actually a case study of a man from China went to Germany for a conference. He goes to the conference, he's shaking hands with everybody, and he's not even sick. Till he's on the plane going back to China, he starts getting sick. So he gets there and they test him, and sure enough, he's got the coronavirus. Well, they found 17 people at the conference who got sick from him, that he spread to them before he even knew he was sick. And then there was another case of healthcare workers, several healthcare workers, 6 or 7 of them, who got sick from a person who had the virus previously but was over it. He was all better. So people who are no longer sick and then they quarantine themselves, they go, okay, I'm feeling better, I'm going to go out back to work now, they can still spread it. People who before they even get sick for several days, we don't even know what the incubation period is. Incubation period is the time that you contact the virus till the time that you actually get symptoms. And it's anywhere from 3 days to, they're saying, cases of 14 days. They can't find exposure until like 14 days. So you could be sick for 2 weeks. You could have the virus, spread it around, and not even know you have it because you're not having symptoms yet. So because of that, the idea of quarantine is, well, not quite ridiculous, but not really very useful because the virus is spreading before you could even quarantine, before you even know you have symptoms. Another thing that people often think about is maybe I should wear a mask. I went to Hawaii a couple of weeks ago, and there were a lot of people there wearing masks. And the Hawaiian government says, we may have to shut down travel because we don't want our island to get this, have this virus. And so everybody was going to Costco, and they bought out all the toilet paper. It was amazing. There was just nothing left, 0 toilet paper. I don't know why everybody wants to blow their nose, or I don't know what's going on. And then water and masks. Everybody's like buying masks as much as they can. Well, do the masks work? Yeah, to some extent they do work, because it seems like the virus is spread primarily in large droplets. This is interesting. Coronavirus is an enveloped RNA virus. What that means is it doesn't have a protein coat to protect it. It only has a membrane, which is made of fat, and a lipid membrane. So it actually breaks down pretty easily in the environment. And it's an RNA virus, which is not as stable as DNA. So this is an unstable kind of virus in the environment. So it doesn't last for very long. It'll last in the droplets. Like if you sneeze or something, and the big droplets that come out, it lasts pretty well, and you can spread it that way. And the micro droplets, possibly, but on a dry surface, once it dries out, then it's no longer viable. You can't say living, because viruses don't live. But as long as there's a little droplet for it to stay in when it doesn't dry out, then it can be on surfaces. But it's not going to be on a dry surface for very long. And it's easily inactivated by ultraviolet light, so like in the sun, and all of the things that we use to kill viruses, bacteria on our hands, things like alcohols, and because it's an envelope virus, the alcohol inactivates it pretty quickly, and things like bleach or all of the chlorine-based antivirals or antiseptics. Sorry, am I still there?
You are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the masks do help somewhat from you breathing in the virus. So if you're close to somebody that sneezes or coughs or somehow spits out the virus, then it can prevent you from getting it. And that's why healthcare workers use them to prevent breathing in the droplets that people who don't know they're sick yet could spread it to them.
So what is the virus doing if somebody gets it, it's in their body? Like, I know it's causing pneumonia and respiratory issues and failure. Is that kind of the biggest thing? But like, once it gets on your body as a host, like, is it just like spreading like crazy and then your body's trying to fight it off and eventually it goes away? Or how does that look on a microscopic level?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so the virus attaches to a cell, injects the RNA into the cell, and the RNA goes into what are called ribosomes and starts making proteins, and it starts replicating itself, making more of these proteins and RNA. So and then it assembles a whole bunch of new viruses inside the cell.
Lost him.
So, what? Okay.
This was really getting good.
No, I can hear him.
Am I cutting off?
Yeah, Joe, it was you, not me. So what a virus does, and what coronavirus does, is it forces your cells to become a virus factory, and they start making viruses, and then it gets so big it just pops the cell open, and thousands or millions, tens of thousands, millions of viruses just go out into your blood, and they find other cells, and they inject their RNA in and make virus factories out of your cells. So they're not just destructive, they're just reproducing. That's what they do. But in the process of reproducing, they use your cells so that your cells are dying while they are reproducing. And if you think about the numbers, it is incredible. When they look at DNA or RNA in this case from the virus, and they draw blood and they're looking for the RNA, it is in tens of thousands of copies of RNA per cubic millimeter of blood. This is a tiny, tiny amount of blood, and we're talking tens of thousands of viruses in every cubic millimeter of your blood. This is huge amounts of virus that are being produced when you're actively sick.
Wow. So yeah, if you have it, then every time you sneeze or cough, you're sending out a factory of little, viruses and all over the place.
Yep, all over the place. It's amazing how fast these things can spread.
Wow. So let's talk about, what is the difference? Why does one person die from it eventually, and why does another person fight it off, and how does that look internally?
Okay, great. So some people, their immune system doesn't attack the viruses very quickly, and that can take a little while. And so if they're making antibodies against the virus, that takes a bit of time to start that process. In the meantime, there are, especially if you've been exposed to it before, there's something called cellular immunity, and that is they're called macrophages, and they kill the cells. They take out the cells that are infected with the virus before they can pop open and release all these new viruses into your body, into your blood. So the way that the body overcomes this is through what we call cellular immunity. That's the first line of defense during an infection. And then what's called humoral immunity, and that is the antibodies. That we always talk about antibodies, how important they are, and they clean up afterward, after the cells have taken out a lot of the cells that are reproducing the viruses. The antibodies have to come in and clean up all the viruses that are in the blood. And so the humoral immunity, or the antibodies, are like the janitors. They're going around in the blood and all over and cleaning up. Now, some people have a decreased ability to do their cellular immunity, so the virus can take over really quickly, because they don't have macrophages taking out the cells that are the virus factories. Because those cells recognize, oh, that's a virus factory, got to get rid of that, and so these viruses can overcome them pretty quickly if they don't have that. So that's one set. The other set are the ones that don't make humoral immunity very well. They don't make the antibodies very fast, so they don't clean up the viruses that are around. So the virus can actually, over time, spread to other organs and other places in the body. Now, some viruses, like rhinoviruses, which we call the common cold, only like the upper respiratory system in the cool areas. They only reproduce well where it's cool, so they never get into the lungs. Coronavirus is different. Coronavirus can infect a lot of different tissues in mucous membranes everywhere. It can give you a sore throat. It can get in your eyes. So people wearing masks, for example, don't know that if they rub their eyes, they just put it in their eyes. They inoculated their own eyes, and that can initiate the infection. And from there, it can go into the nose, and from there, it can get into the lungs, cause sore throat, and cough, and all of the other things, because this particular virus can get into any mucous membrane, whereas other viruses don't. If you've heard of like a adenovirus, gets into glands. Rhinoviruses just likes the nose. Hepatitis virus only likes the liver, doesn't really like any other tissues, it only reproduces in liver cells. So, but coronaviruses, like any mucous membrane, they can get in anywhere. So that's why this particular virus is easily spread. You're wearing a mask, you're going, oh, good, I'm not going to get a respiratory infection. Then you rub your eye because it itches, and you get it. So you have to be careful. And actually, that's why hand washing is the #1 best way to deal with this. Is just washing your hands. It's not that hard. So remember, it's an enveloped virus, so it just has a fat coating, an oil coating on the outside, and that's what keeps it stable. And that's easily disrupted by soap. So just washing for 20 seconds with soap and water is as good as anything else, or the alcohol-based disinfectants hands. Those work too, and that's more effective than wearing a mask or doing any other thing that you could do.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we've been seeing a lot of that, washing hands, and we hear about the antibacterial, antiviral hand stuff, and that's selling off the shelves and things like that. So that's good to know. And so, I mean, what are your thoughts on like not traveling or not going in crowds and different things like that is being talked about?
Well, yeah, you know what? Your exposure is less if you are exposed to fewer people. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
that is a thing, and you have to know that there are a lot of people who don't know they have it. They don't have any symptoms, like that guy from China on an airplane. He got on the airplane saying, thinking he was fine, and then he got sick while he was on the airplane. And exposed everybody on the airplane to that. You got to think, it's kind of interesting. The trip from Germany to China, everybody on that plane is breathing the same air like 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you're not exposing. It's like the old joke about having a no smoking section in a restaurant is like having a no peeing section in your pool. You can't contain the virus in one space when everybody in that space in the airplane, for example, is breathing the same air as everybody else. So in that case, perhaps wearing a mask would be helpful, and it probably is helpful, although I haven't seen any studies on it. And so you may not want to go on a plane for that reason. And then going into crowds, you know what? If you're in a crowd, you're going to be exposed to things. You just are. There's just because it's a crowd. Let's see. And then other things, like not traveling, closing borders is something that a lot of countries are doing now, which probably isn't really helpful in the long run.
What's your expectation for what's going to happen over the next few weeks or months here?
Okay, it's easy. Epidemiology. This has been studied for hundreds of years, many hundreds of years of what happens in an outbreak. So there was what we call the SARS outbreak in 2002 from China. And it was like, oh no, we're all gonna die. And that was a bad virus. That was like 10% of people died from that. And that was also a coronavirus. There was another coronavirus outbreak in 2012 in the Middle East. And the Middle East SARS virus is also much more virulent. It's like, I don't know, 30% of people died from that outbreak. So here we have another coronavirus outbreak, and it's not unusual, it's not weird, it's not bigger than others. In fact, it's not even as virulent. Only 1 to 3% are dying from it, of those tested. And then so now what's happening? Well, go to China and look at what happened. It's been a few weeks, a few months now, for a couple of months. And already you're seeing fewer cases, so that it's already plateauing, where the rise in the number of cases, it's not getting exponentially higher anymore. It's not bottoming out at all. It's still they're increasing numbers, but they're increasing less rapidly. That's the best way to put it. So, and then what's going to happen is the curve is going to continue going down, and over a few months, it's going to fade out and go away. And then that same kind of curve is going to happen in other countries around the world as it gets spread everywhere around the world. And then we're all going to pretty much be exposed to the coronavirus, and most of us aren't even going to know it, or we're going to have a mild cough, or got a sore throat, got a runny nose, got a fever, stay home from work for a couple of days and go back to work. And most people are not going to know that they've been exposed to it. And that's pretty much the way it goes. Doesn't change much.
So some people, you said, are going to get it, have mild symptoms, maybe miss a couple days of work or something, or school. But yeah, what is the difference? Is it because people have better immune systems and they fight it off so it doesn't affect them as much?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So this work has been done, again, hundreds of years of work on this. They used flu viruses in England and took 100 people and sprayed them all with the virus. They're volunteers. They know what they're getting into. And they sprayed so 100% of these people were exposed to the flu virus. And 60 of them got sick. Some of them got mild illnesses. 40 of them didn't even know they had it. And that's influenza. And so the coronavirus is a similar kind of issue where a large number of people aren't even going to know they were exposed to it. Some are going to get sick, some are not. And the difference is your immune system. And that's where you talked in the beginning about the synochroma. Vitamin D is a big portion of that. You know, why do we have flu season? Why is it seasonal? It doesn't make any sense. Why, epidemiologically, there should not be a flu season. You should be, we don't travel differently in the winter than we do in the summer. They used to think that. They used to think the season was because, well, during the winter, people are more indoors and they're closer together. Therefore, they're contacting each other more and they're not, spread out outdoors. Well, it turns out that's not the case. And then they thought, well, it's because it's cold outside and their bodies are chilled and that's why it happens. Well, you know what? When I was in the Philippines, where it never gets cold, I was in a market and there were these children with towels strapped to their backs. So they're wearing no shirts at all. Some of them had shirts on, but their towel was folded and strapped to their backs. And I asked my host, I said, why are those children, why do they have towels strapped to them? They said, oh, that's so they don't get a cold, because the cold happens when the sweat dries on your back. See, it never gets cold in the Philippines. So they can't say because they got chilled, but everybody's sweating. So what they do is they put the towels on the back to absorb the sweat so the sweat doesn't dry on their back, then they won't get a cold. So all these ideas come out, but the reality is it's the immune system. So if you have a sufficient immune system, you can fight it off quickly. Remember I told you about the macrophages? Those cells take out the cells in your body that are the virus factories. And if you have a really good cellular immunity, you're going to take out number one, the very first virus that infects you. Your macrophages are going to take it out and you're never going to get another virus in your body. It's done, and you develop antibodies against it and everything. Your immune system functions well. That's what that synochroma is about. That's what the vitamin D. So vitamin D binds to what's called macrophage activating factor. And it activates the macrophages. And so during the summer, when people are getting sunshine, they're getting a lot of vitamin D, there's a very low ebb in colds and flu. So you don't see colds and flu in the summertime because people are getting a lot of vitamin D. And then in the wintertime, when the sun is at an angle that we don't get vitamin D, we don't make vitamin D, all of a sudden you start seeing colds and flu. And so it's not the only factor, but that's a huge portion of it. And that's why we were calling it the synochroma, we were calling it the coronavirus cocktail. Because if you have sufficient amount of vitamin D, you can activate the macrophages, which are the cellular immunity to take out all of those cells that reproduce the virus so that you don't get overwhelmed with it.
Okay.
And often you won't even know you have it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the amazing thing.
So what's your recommendation for the amount of vitamin D to be taking, I guess, both in a preventative way and in a ongoing amount?
Okay. So an ongoing amount is a preventative way. And when I look at the research, that's done. It seems like when I draw blood, I draw levels of vitamin D in almost all of my patients. And so I've done thousands of these. And I've looked at the research on what's the best level to have. And so 80. The level of 80 nanograms per milliliter in blood, if you've drawn your level, it should be around 80. Deficiency is less than 30. And most people who aren't taking a supplement are right around 30 or less than 30. I've seen anywhere from 11 to in the low 30s. I even had somebody who was a beach volleyball player in Santa Barbara who was 32. And I'm like, dude, you're deficient in vitamin D. He's like, no way. He says, I don't wear sunscreen. I'm out without a shirt on playing volleyball on the beach every day. But what he was doing was going in and taking a shower after he played volleyball and washing all that vitamin D that had just come on his skin that the sunshine had made into vitamin D. He just washed it all down the drain. So it's not easy to get vitamin D the way our lifestyle is today, because we use sunscreen, because we wear clothes, because we avoid the sun, we have artificial lights, and we take showers every day.
Yeah.
So for all those reasons, it's hard to get vitamin D. So a supplement is important. Everybody should take vitamin D just because of the way modern lifestyle is. And
Synachroma has K2 with it as well. How does vitamin K2 affect your D3 absorption?
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm getting to that. So the amount you should take is about 50,000 units once a week. That gets people up to the 40-50 range, which is an adequate amount. 50,000 units twice a week would get you up into the 80s range, and that's the optimal range. So the optimum place to be, the physiologic range, is 50,000 units twice a week. And that's hard to find. I know you can get it on Amazon. I have it in my office, the 50,000 unit dose. And in the sunshine, that's what you make. Those are, you make easily 20,000 units a day from sunshine, like if you were in, I don't know, Hawaii or something, somewhere close to the equator. So then your question, vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 is essential for the calcium utilization. So one of the things that this hormone, vitamin D, does is helps us to absorb more calcium from our intestines. And if you just absorb the calcium, then you got this calcium and you go, okay, what do I do with that? Well, you can put it on bones. You can put it in your arteries. You can excrete it out in your urine. There's all kinds of things you can do with this extra calcium. And in fact, all of those things happen. But the K2 does is really cool. It helps you store more of the calcium in your bones and less in your arteries and excreting out in your urine. So the K2 is really the greatest benefit, should be taken with vitamin D3 for that reason, so that you're not just hardening your arteries with calcium by taking extra vitamin D and not having the K. Most people who eat green vegetables are not deficient in K. But if you don't eat green vegetables, you should probably supplement with K2 as well.
Okay. So let's bring this back around, tie coronavirus back into diabetes and blood pressure and things like that. And so if somebody has type 2 or high blood sugar, high A1Cs, things like that, are they typically more immunocompromised because of that? Is there a correlation there?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No, that doesn't really cause a person to get sick more. There's other factors that are involved. So if, because you have diabetes, you also have neuropathy, poor circulation, then yes, you're more likely to get infections, but those are more of the localized, like the foot infections, because you don't have good circulation, so you aren't getting blood to the area, you don't have good energy production in the cells. So, and the immune system doesn't function very well because you don't have good circulation. So for all those reasons, really the circulatory problems, people with diabetes get infections more easily, like foot infections or cellulitis or osteomyelitis, which is an infection in the bone. Those are more likely, and that's more of a circulation problem. But as far as like the coronavirus, unless you're immunosuppressed for another reason, it's not likely that just having type 2 diabetes is going to increase your risk for getting the coronavirus. However, what's really interesting is the reason Synachroma has vitamin D is because vitamin D also helps you regulate your insulin and electrolyte balances, which affect your blood sugar as well. So because of the effect of the vitamin D on the blood sugar, we put it in the Synachroma. Oh, and by the way, it also helps your immune system to function better. So,
right.
So
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. Somebody had a good question. Is vitamin D3 the best type of vitamin D to take, or is typically all vitamin D3 in a supplement form?
Oh, that's a great question. So there's two main types of vitamin D. There's D2, which is from a fungus. It's from a mold or fungus. And then the D3, which is from the body. That's what mammals make, is D3. And all D3 is made from sunshine. And whether it's, every mammal, sheep, even fish, like the fish, the cod liver oil has D3 in it. But wait a minute, these codfish aren't getting very much sunshine under the water. No, but the plankton on top of the water is getting the sunshine. The zooplankton is making the vitamin D, and then the fish eat the plankton, and then the fish eat the fish, and they're getting their vitamin D from this plankton that's on top of the water that's getting the vitamin D from the water, from the sunshine. So all vitamin D is made from sunshine. D3, and that is the active biological normal form. That's what we as mammals use. So the fungus makes D2, which is a similar structure, but isn't exactly the same. It's about 15% bioactive compared to D3, which means it's about 15% as effective as vitamin D3. So definitely vitamin D3 is the better choice over D2.
Okay, good. Good. So to recap, coronavirus, you're expecting that's going to diminish over the next month or two, kind of a bell curve. As you see it on the beginning part, it comes up, it peaks, and then it kind of declines, and you have a longer tail. So one last thing I wanted to talk about is the role of fear and stress levels and how that can negatively affect people, because I think that's one of the things we're seeing. There's so much fear going on. You look at the news and it's all about coronavirus and all these people dying when it's really hyped up and overblown, I think. But like if you're in a state of fear and stress, that can't be good, right?
Right. You know what was really cool? The president of the United States said, "You know what? This is a lot of fear mongering. This is, you guys are overblowing this thing. Yes, it's an infection, but you know what? We deal with this every single year with the influenza. Why is this so overblown and everybody's got, panicking, going to Costco and buying out everything out of Costco to as if it were the end of the world?" And so he had a really good point, and that is the number one problem with the fear is that our society functions on our trust in others, and we require trust. So here we are giving you information about diabetes, and if you trust what we say, then you buy the diabetes solution kit and you start following it, and then you get better. And if you don't, then you don't buy it. And so if you don't if we're living in fear, then people start hoarding things and holding on to things and not traveling, not going out. So we see huge economic effects of fear, how it could destroy our system of economy just because of all this fear mongering. That's number one. Then your question is the individual. How does the individual fear affect you? Well, stress is the number one worst enemy for health. If you look at all the stuff we talk about, all the toxins, the foods, the junk foods, the drugs, whatever, all that stuff, okay, those affect your health, this much. Whereas fear is like this much. It's huge. Stress is a bigger suppressor of your immune system than any of the other things that you worry about, toxins or whatever kind of stuff that you worry about. So being stressed is not good for you. It's not good for you as an individual. That's where a lot of people who get frequent infections, it's because they're stressed and their immune system is suppressed, because all those stress hormones like cortisol actually literally suppress your immune system.
Awesome. Okay. That is some really good information. So everybody, coronavirus, don't worry about it. Wash your hands often and be smart, use wisdom, be, eating nutritiously, keep your immune system high. Vitamin D3, we talked about synochroma. If you have synochroma, this has 5,000 IUs per pill. And if you take 10 of these twice a week, you're going to be fine. And it's got the K2 in it to help absorption, like we talked about. So that, you're in good hands, nothing to worry about. If and the other thing, like the opposite of fear is faith. And I am a man of faith. And I just believe, like, if you come across people that are speaking fear, just try to switch the conversation to faith and talk about how, we're in the hands of a God that created the universe out of nothing and spoke it into existence. And faith is more powerful than fear. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to walk by faith. And so that's my encouragement for you guys. Also use wisdom and don't go around sneezing on people or being sneezed on by people if you can help it. All right. So, okay. Well, hey, this has been a great call. We went over time, but I think with all the news of the coronavirus going on, it was awesome to get Dr. Saunders to chime in and to share some really valuable information. And And then to close out with Matt's story, I apologize that it was choppy today. We're going to get his story recorded. We're getting some good feedback from people just saying how important that is to them, for them to hear as well. So thanks again, Matt, for doing that. And, everybody just, again, continue doing what you know to be doing. Follow the healthy eating plan found in the Diabetes Solution Kit, and using the supplements like Synochroma and Nervala, which a lot of people have been using. And if you don't have this yet, you can go to bartonwebinar.com and get some. And I believe we have a coupon code we can give you right now, even if you're still on here and you want to get some Synochroma and save 25%. Just use a coupon code Barton25, and I think that's a little secret coupon code you can use today too. So thanks for joining us, everybody. And we do these webinars every Tuesday at 10 o'clock Central. Typically they go about 45 minutes. Today we went overboard, but we covered a lot of good stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and good to see you guys all on here. Thanks for the questions. We'll be back next week. Thank you, Dr. Saunders, for all of your great information. Thanks for joining us and taking time out of your busy day. So we wish you guys all the best, and we'll see you next time. God bless. Thanks, Leslie. Bye.